I never thought I'd get jealous of my own boyfriend at a party, but here we are. Honestly, it was one of those chaotic weekends where everything that could go sideways kind of did, and yet somehow it ended up being the night I'll never forget. I'm still trying to piece it all together, but let me start from the beginning. So his name's Lucas. We've been together for about a year now, which feels simultaneously like no time and forever. I mean, when you find someone who just gets you, time doesn't really matter, right? Lucas is the kind of guy who can light up a room just by walking in. Tall, with this easy smile that's both genuine and a little mischievous. He's the one who convinced me to come out of my shell a bit more, and honestly, I owe him for that. Last Saturday, we were invited to this party down at a friend's loft downtown. It was one of those artsy gatherings with weird sculptures and indie music blasting through speakers that looked like they belonged in another decade. Not really my scene, but Lucas was excited, and I was just happy to be with him. I figured a few hours, some drinks, maybe a friendly chat or two, and then we could head home. At first, the night was chill. We grabbed a couple of beers, mingled a bit, and I got to meet some of Lucas's friends. He introduced me to a guy named Jared, who seemed cool enough, smart, funny, a little sarcastic, the kind of person who makes you laugh without even trying. I liked Jared instantly. Lucas seemed to pick up on that and joked that I was flirting right in front of him. I laughed it off, told Lucas to chill, that Jared was just funny, and I wasn't about to start any drama. But then, as the night went on, I noticed it. Lucas started acting a little off. Not the usual playful smirk or teasing jokes. No, it was quieter, almost tense. I caught him glancing at Jared with this look I hadn't seen before, a flicker of something like jealousy, but wrapped in confusion. I didn't say anything at first, thinking maybe I was reading into it too much. After all, Lucas is pretty easygoing. Jealousy from him was rare. Then things got worse. Or maybe better? I'm still not sure. Jared came over again, this time a little drunker, and started cracking jokes with Lucas. They shared this look, a kind of inside joke that made me feel like I was on the outside. Lucas's laughter felt different, not directed at me anymore. I tried to shake it off, leaning in closer to Lucas, but he pulled away subtly, like he was holding back. By the end of the night, I was confused, a little hurt, and honestly, wondering if I'd misread the whole thing. We left the party in that awkward silence that sometimes creeps in after too many mixed signals. And then, when we finally got home, everything changed. Lucas looked at me, really looked at me, with this intensity I wasn't prepared for. Without saying a word, he reached out, pulled me close and kissed me like he was trying to make up for every second of doubt or jealousy or whatever it was that had been bubbling underneath all night. Honestly, it caught me totally off guard. That moment made me realize maybe jealousy wasn't about insecurity or control. Maybe it was something more complicated, something real and raw and, yeah, kind of beautiful. But how did we get there from a party full of strangers? That's the story I want to tell you. Because that night wasn't just about a kiss. It was about us figuring out what we really meant to each other, in the middle of all that noise and confusion. The kiss wasn't like the casual peck we usually share before bed. No, this one was heavy, full of unspoken words, and it caught me completely off guard. Lucas's hands were firm on my waist, pulling me closer as if he was trying to erase the awkwardness of the night in one single moment. I could feel his breath hitch as we parted just long enough for me to see something in his eyes. Something raw and urgent that made my heart pound faster. "Why didn't you say anything?" I asked quietly, running a hand through my hair, because honestly, I didn't know what else to do. Lucas hesitated for a second, then shook his head, like he was trying to find the right words. "I didn't want to mess up the night. I didn't want you to think I was being crazy." "Crazy?" I laughed softly. "I mean, you kind of were. I was just talking to a friend." "Yeah, well," he looked down for a moment, then back at me. "It felt like more than that at the party, like you were slipping away, even if just a little." I swallowed hard. I knew he was right, in a way. That night had felt different, like there was this invisible tension between us, and I hadn't known how to break it. I wanted to explain everything, but my words tangled up in my throat. Instead, I pulled him closer again, this time slower, more deliberately. "I don't want to lose you," Lucas smiled, a little sheepish but mostly relieved. "Good, because I'm not going anywhere." We stood there for a while, just holding each other in the quiet of our apartment, the sounds of the city muffled behind closed windows. It was the first time all night I felt safe, like we could finally let down our guards. The next day, I woke up thinking maybe I'd imagined how intense things got. But no, Lucas was still there, smiling at me over coffee, making stupid jokes, and acting like nothing had happened. Somehow, that normalcy made me feel even closer to him. Later that afternoon, we went out for a walk. Just the two of us, no distractions. It was the kind of simple date that felt perfect after the chaos of the party. The sun was setting, casting this golden glow over the park, and as we walked, Lucas took my hand. "You know," he said, "I've always hated feeling jealous. It's messy and stupid. But last night, it made me realize how much I care." I squeezed his hand back. "It's weird, right? How something uncomfortable can actually bring you closer." "Yeah," he laughed. "I guess sometimes you've got to get a little jealous to see what really matters." We didn't have any grand declarations or dramatic confessions after that. Just a quiet understanding that whatever had happened at the party was a turning point for US. A few days later, I ran into Jared again, this time in a coffee shop. I wasn't sure how to feel. Part of me wanted to avoid any awkwardness, but the other part just wanted to be straightforward. "Hey," Jared said, grinning like nothing had happened. "Good seeing you again." "That party was wild." "Yeah," I replied. "Listen, about that night, I just wanted to say, no hard feelings. Lucas and I, it's complicated." Jared nodded, a bit more serious. "I get it. I didn't mean to cause anything between you two. You guys look good together." That small moment made me realize just how much I'd been caught up in my own head. Sometimes jealousy isn't about the other person at all. It's about what you're afraid to lose. When I got home that evening, Lucas was waiting for me with a goofy smile and an ice cream cone. We sat down on the couch and he pulled me close again. "Ready for round 2 of making out?" he teased. I laughed and kissed him, this time without any confusion or tension, just the pure, simple feeling of being exactly where I was supposed to be. And honestly, I wouldn't trade that messy, jealous night for anything. It taught me that love isn't always easy or perfect. Sometimes it's complicated, sometimes it's uncomfortable, but when it's real, it's worth every awkward, jealous moment. That week felt like a weird kind of reset for us. After that night, everything seemed more honest. Less pretending that nothing was wrong or sweeping feelings under the rug. Lucas and I started talking about things we'd usually avoid. Jealousy, trust, what we wanted out of this relationship. It wasn't always comfortable, but it felt right. One evening, a few days after the party, we were cooking dinner together. While I was mostly watching Lucas scramble eggs while trying not to burn the kitchen down. He was humming some tune, completely absorbed, and I was leaning against the counter, just watching him. The way he concentrated like that made my chest tighten, in a good way. "So," I said, breaking the silence, "how do you feel about that whole Jared situation?" Lucas paused, spat out a little bit of egg, then laughed. "I still don't like the idea of you chatting so much with other guys, but I get that it's harmless. I guess I'm just not used to feeling possessive? I hate that word." "I know what you mean," I said, "but maybe it's not about possession. Maybe it's just wanting to feel like you're the one who matters most." "I felt that way too last weekend." He turned to me, eyebrows raised. "Really? I thought I was the only weirdo." I grinned. "You're definitely not the only one." Then I got serious. "But if we're going to do this, be together, we have to be able to be honest, even when it's messy." Lucas nodded. "Agreed. No more silent jealousy games." We clinked our forks together like nerdy toast champions and dove back into our eggs, laughing when I accidentally flipped mine onto the floor. The next day, Lucas suggested we check out this little art exhibit downtown. I wasn't super into art galleries, but he promised it was different, and honestly, I was just happy to spend time with him. The place was small but cozy, filled with abstract paintings and sculptures that looked like they belonged in some modern museum. Lucas was in his element, explaining the stories behind the pieces and dragging me from one artwork to the next. We got to this one corner where a sculpture made from twisted metal caught my eye. It looked chaotic, like a mess of sharp edges and tangled wires, but somehow it felt alive. Lucas caught me staring and said, "It's kind of like relationships, huh? Messy and complicated, but somehow beautiful." I smiled at him, feeling that weird flutter in my stomach again. Yeah, and sometimes you have to get through the chaos to find the good parts. He reached out and took my hand, squeezing it gently. As we left the gallery, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. The jealousy from the party started to seem like a distant memory, replaced by this feeling of being understood and accepted. That night, we stayed in and binge-watched some terrible sci-fi movies, laughing at how ridiculous the plots were. Lucas rested his head on my shoulder, and I realized I didn't want to be anywhere else. But things weren't perfect. A few days later, I caught myself scrolling through Lucas's phone when he left it unattended. I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe reassurance, but I found some messages from Jared. They weren't anything scandalous, just casual chit-chat about the party and plans for a group hangout. Still, the unease crept back in. I felt that old jealous knot tighten in my stomach. When Lucas came back into the room, I tried to act normal, but he noticed. "Hey, what's up?" he asked, sitting next to me. I hesitated, then said, "I saw the messages from Jared." Lucas frowned, but didn't look upset. "Yeah, we're planning to meet with a few friends this weekend." I sighed. I guess it just caught me off guard. I thought we'd moved past all that jealousy stuff. Lucas put an arm around me. "I get it. Jealousy isn't something that just disappears overnight. But I promise, you're the one I want to be with." I leaned into him, feeling the weight of his words settle over me. "I want that too." We spent the rest of the night talking about boundaries and trust, figuring out what felt comfortable for both of us. It wasn't easy, but I could tell Lucas was committed to making this work. The weekend hangout with Jared and other friends arrived, and I was nervous, still a little afraid that old jealousy might flare up. But Lucas was by my side the whole time, holding my hand in crowded rooms, whispering little jokes to keep me grounded. By the end of the night, I realized something important. Jealousy might never fully go away, but it doesn't have to control us. As long as we kept talking, kept choosing each other, that was what mattered. Walking home that night, Lucas slipped his hand into mine and smiled. "You okay?" I nodded, squeezing his fingers. "Yeah, better than okay." He leaned in and kissed me softly. "Good, because you're stuck with me." I laughed. "Looks like I'm not complaining." And honestly, I wasn't. Not one bit. After that night, things between Lucas and me settled into this new rhythm. Less of the silent, awkward moments, and more of those honest conversations that felt like little bridges we were building together. It wasn't perfect, and sometimes the old feelings still popped up, but they didn't hit as hard anymore. I think the key was that we were both willing to be vulnerable, even when it scared us. One Thursday evening, Lucas texted me out of the blue, asking if I wanted to come over after work. I said yes without hesitation. I figured maybe we'd just hang out, maybe watch some dumb movies again, like our usual. When I got to his apartment, the place was already dimly lit with a few candles flickering on the coffee table. Lucas was sitting on the couch in that way that made your heart skip. Casual, but with this quiet intensity I hadn't seen in a while. He patted the spot next to him. "Sit down. I want to talk," he said, voice low. I plopped down beside him, suddenly curious and a little nervous. "Okay, talk." He ran a hand through his hair, like he was gathering courage. "I've been thinking about us, about everything that happened. The party, the jealousy, the talks. And honestly, I want to take things a step further." I blinked. "Further? Like what?" He smiled, but it was serious, the kind of smile that means he's really thought about this. "I want us to move in together." My heart jumped. Moving in together was a big deal. It wasn't just some casual step. But the idea didn't scare me. It felt like the right next move. "I was kinda hoping you'd say that," I admitted, laughing nervously. Lucas chuckled. "Good. Because I've been apartment hunting this past week." "What? You didn't tell me this?" "Didn't want to jinx it," he said with a shrug, but his eyes were sparkling. "Found a place close to your work, with a little balcony for plants and all that stuff you like." I was grinning before I even realized it. "Sounds perfect. We spent the rest of the evening talking about logistics, what furniture we'd keep, what we'd need to buy, and even little things like whose turn it would be to take out the trash. It felt like building a future, piece by piece. A few weekends later, we went to see the apartment. It was a cozy two-bedroom with big windows that let in tons of natural light. I could already picture us there, drinking coffee in the kitchen, arguing over what to watch on Netflix, laughing at inside jokes that only we would get. Lucas looked at me, that mischievous glint back in his eyes. "What do you think?" I took a deep breath. "I think, let's do it." And just like that, we were officially roommates. Moving in together was a whole new kind of challenge. Suddenly, we had to navigate living side by side every day. The good, the annoying, the surprising. Like Lucas's habit of leaving his socks on the floor everywhere, or me being a little too obsessed with keeping things tidy. But it was also amazing. Waking up and having him there beside me, sharing lazy Sunday mornings, cooking dinner together after long days, and falling asleep tangled up in each other's arms. One night, about a month after the move, we were sprawled out on the couch watching a movie I didn't even care about because I was more focused on Lucas's hand in mine. He looked over at me and smiled softly. He started, "I was scared that jealousy would ruin us, but I think it actually saved us." I raised an eyebrow. "How's that?" "Because it forced us to talk, to be honest, to see how much we actually care." I nodded, feeling that same flutter in my chest. "Yeah, sometimes the hardest things bring you closer." Lucas leaned in and kissed me, slow and sure. "I love you." Those 3 words hit me differently than I ever expected. It wasn't just something we said because it felt right. It was a promise. "I love you too," I whispered back. But here's the real kicker. Even with all the progress and the love, sometimes the old feelings still sneak up on me. Like last weekend, when we went to a party again. This time a friend of mine was there, and I caught Lucas watching him with that same little flicker of jealousy. It surprised me, but instead of getting upset, I just reached over and squeezed Lucas's hand. Later, on the walk home, I asked, "Still feeling jealous?" Lucas smiled sheepishly. "Yeah, but it's different now. It's not about control or fear. It's more like a reminder that I don't want to lose you." I squeezed his hand tighter. "You won't. Not as long as we keep choosing each other." And that's what it all comes down to, I guess. Jealousy isn't this villain we have to fight. It's more like a messy signal telling us what we care about most. And if we pay attention, really listen, it can lead to something stronger than either of us thought possible. So yeah, Lucas got jealous at the party. And yeah, he kissed me when we got home. But that night was just the beginning of a whole lot more. For better, for worse, and everything in between. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. That night after the party, when Lucas kissed me like he was trying to make up for everything unspoken, it felt like the beginning of something new. But life doesn't just hand you neat little moments like that without shaking things up a bit first. A few weeks after we moved in together, I started noticing some little cracks in our shiny new setup. It wasn't anything huge, more like those tiny annoyances that grow when 2 people share a space and their lives. Like Lucas leaving his coffee mug scattered around the apartment, or me obsessively organizing the fridge so food wouldn't get lost in the back. One evening after work, I came home to find the place in a bit of a mess. Lucas was sitting on the couch, scrolling on his phone, looking a little distracted. I tossed my bag on the floor and tried not to sigh. "Long day?" I asked. He glanced up, then nodded. "Yeah, work was rough." And then Jared texted me. I froze. Jared, the guy who'd made that party night so complicated. A familiar knot tightened in my chest, and I tried to swallow it down. "What'd he want?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Lucas hesitated, then said, "Just some stuff about a group project he's working on. Nothing important." I nodded slowly, but couldn't shake the feeling that maybe nothing important wasn't the full story. Over the next few days, I caught myself checking Lucas's phone more than I wanted to admit. I hated that I was doing it, but the jealousy from before was sneaking back in, like an old, unwelcome guest. One night, I finally couldn't hold it in and brought it up. "Lucas, can we talk?" I said, sitting down beside him on the couch. He looked at me, eyes serious. "Yeah, what's up?" I know you said Jared's messages are nothing, but I can't help feeling weird about it. I don't want to be that jealous guy again, but it's hard. Lucas took a deep breath and reached for my hand. I get it. And I don't want you to feel like that. Jared's just a friend, and I'm sorry if I haven't been clear about it. I looked down at our hands, fingers intertwined. It felt like the first real test since we moved in together, being vulnerable in a new way. Can we just promise to be honest, even if it's uncomfortable? I asked. Absolutely, Lucas said, squeezing my hand. A few days later, we invited Jared over with a couple of other friends for a casual game night. I was nervous going into it, but also hopeful. Maybe getting everyone together would ease the tension. At first, things were relaxed. Jared was funny, the kind of guy who could make you laugh even when you tried not to. Lucas and I sat close, stealing glances and sharing small smiles that felt like secret codes. It was good, like we were reminding ourselves that this was our relationship, and no one else could mess with it. But then, during a break in the games, Jared made a joke about Lucas and me being the perfect couple. At first, I laughed, but then I caught the way Lucas's smile faltered for a second, a flash of something unreadable. And suddenly, I wasn't sure if I was just imagining things. Later, after everyone left, Lucas and I sat on the balcony, the cool night air wrapping around us. Hey, I said, breaking the silence. Are you okay? You seemed off back there. Lucas ran a hand through his hair, looking out at the city lights. I'm fine. Just, sometimes it's weird, Having friends who see you a certain way, and then having someone else see you differently. I guess it makes me question where I fit. I leaned into him. You fit here, with me. He smiled, but it was tinged with something deeper. Thanks. I needed to hear that. We stayed out there a while longer, just holding each other and watching the skyline. It reminded me that relationships aren't just happy moments and easy conversations. They're the hard stuff too. The doubts, the insecurities, the little jealousies that flare up unexpectedly. But what makes it worth it is facing those things together. A couple weeks later, Lucas surprised me with tickets to a concert, one of those small venues where you're practically on stage with the band. We danced and sang along, caught up in the energy of the crowd. At one point, Lucas leaned in and whispered, "I love you," and I didn't hesitate to say it back. On the walk home, we held hands, the city quiet around us. I realized then that the jealousy, the late-night talks, the awkward moments, they were all part of the messy, imperfect story we were writing together. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. After that concert night, something shifted in the way Lucas and I handled the little things, the jealous moments, the insecurities, the doubts. It wasn't like they disappeared. Those feelings never just vanish outright. But they became less threatening, more like signals that told us when to slow down and check in with each other. One Sunday afternoon, about a month after the concert, I was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping coffee and scrolling through job listings, when Lucas wandered in, wearing that familiar goofy grin. "Guess what?" he said, plopping down across from me. I looked up, raising an eyebrow. "Did you finally figure out how to use the new coffee machine, or is this something bigger?" He laughed. Bigger. Way bigger. I waited for him to spill it. I've been thinking about a change. At work, I mean. I got offered a transfer to the New York office. I blinked. New York? That was unexpected. How long have you known? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. A couple of days. I wanted to talk to you first before making any decisions. I leaned back, processing. We'd just moved in together, building this life. A move across the country wasn't small. Are you thinking about taking it? I asked quietly. Lucas shrugged, but there was a flicker in his eyes that told me he was torn. I don't know. It's a great opportunity, but it means leaving everything here. Leaving you. That word hit me like a punch. Leaving me. I reached out, taking his hand across the table. Hey, slow down. We'll figure this out. Together. He smiled, grateful. I don't want to lose what we have. Neither do I said. But if this is important to you, we can't just ignore it. We spent the rest of the day talking about options. Could I find work in New York? Would Lucas want to stay here if I couldn't? What about our apartment? Our routines? The future we'd started to build. It was overwhelming, but also real. The kind of stuff you don't think about until it's right in front of you. Over the next week, the uncertainty hovered over us like a storm cloud. We tried to keep things normal, but every time our phones buzzed, every time Lucas mentioned the transfer, the tension flared back up. One evening, after a dinner that felt more like an interrogation, Lucas stood up and paced the living room. "I don't want this to tear us apart," he said, voice low. I got up and closed the distance between us, taking his face in my hands. "We're stronger than that. We just have to be honest, no matter what." He nodded, eyes shining with something like hope. A few days later, Lucas surprised me with tickets to visit New York. Just a weekend trip to see the city, the office, and maybe get a feel for what life there could be like. We flew out on a Friday morning, the city's energy buzzing around us. Lucas took me to his future office building, showed me the neighborhood, and introduced me to some of his coworkers. It was different, but exciting. That night, as we walked across a bridge overlooking the skyline, Lucas stopped and looked at me. "I don't want to make this decision without you," he said. "I want us to be a team, no matter where we are." I smiled, feeling all the doubts ease for a moment. "I want that too." The weekend was a whirlwind of exploring, dreaming, and sometimes just sitting quietly, taking it all in. On the last night, sitting in a little jazz bar, Lucas reached across the table and took my hand. "Whatever happens, I love you," he said softly. "I love you too," I replied, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. Back home, the reality hit again. We still had to decide. The transfer was still on the table. One night, I caught Lucas staring out the window, lost in thought. "What's on your mind?" I asked, sitting beside him. He sighed. "I want to take the transfer. I want to grow, to challenge myself. But I don't want to lose us." "You won't," I said, pulling him close. "We'll figure out how to make it work. Distance or not." He rested his head on my shoulder. "I'm scared." "Me too," I admitted. But sometimes the scariest things are the ones worth trying. In the end, Lucas took the transfer. I decided to look for a job in New York, and we started planning the move together. It wasn't easy. Packing up a life, saying goodbye to friends, facing the unknown, but every step felt right because we were doing it as a team. The night before we left, we sat on the balcony of our old apartment, the city lights twinkling below. "Ready for the next chapter?" Lucas asked. I smiled, squeezing his hand. "With you?" "Always." And that's how jealousy at a party led us here. Not just to a kiss or a fight, but to building something real, messy, and beautiful, ready for whatever came next. The morning we left our old apartment, the air was thick with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Boxes were stacked haphazardly, the walls felt emptier than I expected, and every little corner held a memory. Some messy, some beautiful, all ours. Lucas was quiet as we locked the door for the last time, and I could tell he was feeling it too. In the cab to the airport, I reached over and took his hand. "Hey, it's okay to be scared. I'm scared too." He smiled, that same easy grin that had pulled me in from day one. "Yeah, but this time it's different. We're doing this together." That simple truth settled over me like a warm blanket. It wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning of everything else. When we landed in New York, this city felt overwhelming and alive in a way I hadn't imagined. But having Lucas by my side made it feel like home instantly. The noise, the crowds, the endless streets, they all faded into the background when we were together. Our new place was smaller than the old one, and the furniture was a mismatched collection of secondhand finds and things we'd carried with us. But it was ours, and that felt like enough. A few nights after we moved in, we sat on the tiny balcony, city lights flickering below us. Lucas was curled up next to me, his head resting on my shoulder. "Remember that party?" he asked, voice soft. I laughed. "How could I forget? You were jealous as hell." He chuckled. "Yeah, I guess it wasn't the best night, but maybe it was necessary." "Necessary?" I raised an eyebrow. He nodded. "It forced us to confront what we really felt. To stop pretending everything was perfect. And now look at us. Here, starting fresh." I leaned my head against his, I wouldn't trade any of it. The messy parts, the fights, the jealousy, they made us stronger. He kissed the top of my head. I love you. Thanks for sticking with me. I love you too, I whispered. That night, as the city hummed around us, I realized that love isn't about never feeling jealous or scared. It's about choosing each other every day, even when things get messy and complicated. We didn't have all the answers, and life would throw its curveballs, no doubt. But with Lucas, I felt ready to face whatever came next. Together. And honestly, that was more than enough.